Okay, we have Josine here and she has questions about parenting coach certification. And we also have Evie, who is in Greece and is my current student in parenting coach certification, who kindly joined us for this call in case Josine can benefit from some of Evie's insights too. So what's on your mind, Josine? What kind of questions might you have?
Well, what I'm going to start with what's on my mind is that I'm highly interested and very excited that you're doing this. And I got the application, printed it out, and um, that's the form I was going to have with me, but because of the plumbing fiasco, I don't have that in front of me. I had some questions about that. Um, Not filling it out, but just within the means of that is for me, I coach now and I'm not certified. And um, I've always worked outside systems to do, because I really feel that people, I mean, I love the idea that we certify people and get people into places, but there's so much knowledge in people who don't have the means to get certified and stuff like that. So I try to work in that realm, and often I do it kind of like you do it, Tina. I don't, what people pay me what they can, kind of thing. So it's not a money making thing. So I want to venture into it, and I'm trying to think. It just is calling to me, and I don't have any purpose for it, and I'm purposeless in life. So that's the only thing that's like, okay, I really don't have any purpose for it, and I'm probably not going to make money with it. So why would I put money into something that I'm not going to get money out of? Is And that's a worldly thing. That's not me. That's not my heart. And so that's the only thing that's blocking me. So I just want to hear, um, uh, it keeps coming up to me. Sorry, because my computer's loading, it's loading all these messages and it keeps dinging. I don't know how to turn the dinger off. um, but I want to explore more your, not your, way of teaching, but your more the philosophy, like how you found this essential in your life. I want more your personal, like, because I've had this, instead of using the systems that are out there to help people, I've had this instead, and this has made the difference, and show me that. That would be beautiful to hear. If
All
that makes
right, thank you. Yeah. Um, First of all, I do definitely charge for parent coaching. It's $125 an hour for parent
Yeah,
coaching
you know that.
um, and $550 for 4 sessions, which is 175 for the first one, 125 for the subsequent ones. And the reason I do a 4 package is because I want people to feel really supported in their knowledge acquisition and the new practice of being with their kids in a way that is loving, accepting, and also gets the results they want. And that's the thing I really love about this, is that it's so loving and you still get the results. You don't have to be harsher and more punitive and give more consequences to get cooperation and collaboration from your children. And that's what draws me. And also it strengthens the relationship between the parent and child, which is just so important for their future, not only for the child's future, but for the parent's future as an adult, a parent of an adult. I mean, because that's a lifelong relationship. And if we can bring harmony to it and peace to the home, then they can absolutely thrive. And it's not as hard as many parents think it is. It's just a few tweaks on a different way to word things, a different way to approach children, a different way to think about where their behavior is coming from. And when we do that, we can create so much harmony that didn't used to be there, and get people out of that constant state of being in conflict with their children. So that's what draws me. And I feel as if it extends to every single aspect of life, personal life and even life in the world. When kids go into the world feeling loved and supported, then they make a better world for everybody. So there's a family picture and a big picture, societal picture involved in this that I see very clearly, that we're changing the trajectory of where that child was headed oftentimes. I work with private pay clients, and I also work at a treatment foster care agency where I'm the director of family engagement. And we train parent coaches to help children avoid being removed from their homes, or we help the foster parents who have them, or the grandparents or aunts and uncles who have them. And we also help when they are reunifying with their biological parents to bring lots of skills to those parents so that they can create a healthy, happy relationship with their kids, instead of the child feeling disenfranchised from the parent and then going out in the world and joining a gang and committing crimes and all the hard things that can happen to kids. So we do have a more of a big picture view of what parent coaching is about at my business, A New Family Services, not my business, but the nonprofit for which I work. And it's been so powerful to watch everyday parents bring about enormous changes in the mental health of their children, and to help people in the child welfare system maintain good relationships with children and help them feel safe and secure. So what it comes down to actually is safety and security. In that when a child feels safe and secure in a fundamental primary relationship with the parent, or the grandparent, or the foster parent, or the adoptive parent, or the biological parent, then the interaction with the world is much different than if they don't feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they have a need to defend themselves, they have a need to carry a weapon, they have a need to get the attention of the world by committing crimes, acting out in all different ways. And so the acting out comes from, see me, see me, see me. I am dependent on you as my adult for my survival. If you see me, I don't have to act out. But if you don't see me, I have to get your attention. And so every child who is acting out, in my mind, is actually innocent, but they're just operating from that fundamental sense of not feeling safe. So what we do is build safety in the hearts of these children and watch them blossom instead of act out, because they get attention for the good things that they do instead of for the negative things that they do. And that seems kind of simplistic, but it works so beautifully, because actually their hearts are very hungry for this kind of interaction. Their hearts absolutely have to have the positive attention of their parents in order for their bodies, their brains, to feel like they're going to survive. So that's kind of the crux of what we teach philosophically. The other thing is that it's called present moment parenting. That's the name of my book and the techniques that I employ. And it involves being in this present moment with the child and not worrying that the negative stuff from the past is going to be brought into the present moment and then also into the future, but to just be present right now with your child, with whatever emotion he or she is expressing, learning how to read that emotion, learning how to elicit words for those emotions so they don't have to come out sideways as behaviors. Learning to just be here now with the child is so powerful in actually assuring a much better future. So that's the main time-related approach that we take with present moment parenting. And I'm going to pause here because I've talked a lot. Josine, did any questions come up as I was talking?
I love it, Tina, because you brought up safety and security and then you brought up gangs. And my heart goes out to, and I am pulled to work with people who have been in gangs. And so I work with a program around that. And it feels to me um, telling and loving to know this information for that purpose. So I won't use it on children. I'd use it on young adults who are in their 20s is where I'd use it the most. And so my questions probably won't be for people who are typically coming into you, but there's something about having that safety and security and letting them know that other adults are there for them, which is a big, big deal. And, there, another 17-year-old was shot in the area where we are going to deploy them to do unarmed security. And their leaders backing them off from that because of worry and fear. And so I'm trying to teach heartfelt bravery. And I know I love that you hold out these concepts that we use punishment to train, and that's not the way to do it. It doesn't work. And somebody posted on Facebook this idea that corporal punishment and spare the rod, spoil the child. How is timeouts working for this generation compared to the generation that got all that corporal punishment? In other words, they were saying we who were punished are way better and mature. Look at all the havoc we've caused in the world. Yet they were trying to say that this, it's that typical this generation's better than that. So with all those things that parents come into in their heads, how do you break through that to get them to the child? Because they want to go back to those habits. We aren't very creative. We keep patterning ourselves. Same old things keep happening.
So my question for the parents who are stuck in that situation is, how's that working for you? The Dr. Phil question, how's that working for you? So if it's working, then they don't need me as a parent coach. But if it's not working, which it's not, then we have a relationship and we can start exploring better ways to bring out the best in the children by telling them what they're doing well. And by being like Sherlock Holmes, looking for their successes too, instead of looking for their infractions all the time. And when you can change that basic mindset to, I got to tell my kid what's good about my kid. And I ask, what's good about your kid? And then I write it down, I take notes, and sometimes I have them take notes. Well, I often always have them take notes too. Sometimes I send them the list of the good things they just told me about their child so that they can stay focused on that instead of on all the negative, aspects of being a parent. So, and I don't think that young adults are too old to have these principles applied, because many of the young adults who have joined gangs or are looking at the possibility of joining a gang are looking for belonging first and foremost, even though they don't realize that's what they're looking for. They're looking for belonging. And so I teach parents how to help their children belong to them so they don't need to look elsewhere for their belonging. And if they're already gang members or they're helping to create harmony in the community, which I applaud so much, Josie, and I just love what you're doing there. Oftentimes they're younger emotionally when they're in their early 20s. They may be much more like a 16 or a 17-year-old emotionally, because it's probably a given that they've experienced some trauma before they joined the gang. And that trauma has a tendency to delay the emotional development of the child or the young adult. So I would just think in terms of them being younger than their chronological age and addressing what we all need. I don't care how old people are. We need a sense of belonging. We need a sense of being seen and felt and heard by a significant other person or group. And so that's why gangs are successful in recruiting, is because there are so many disenfranchised kids in the world. it's easy to do that. So um, that's kind of
So,
my perspective on it.
yeah, with that belonging, I want to take you to really early childhood and stuff because there's that separation anxiety, almost like their parents, they so belong to their parents that they can't separate from them. And I noticed that with gangs that the belonging is, it's kind of like to give them the safety to becoming, to start becoming instead of just having to always belong. Like they have that self efficacy or whatever where they can hold their own. So with separation anxiety, bring me back early there. Like how do you teach people to coach around that? Where I was with a baby the other day and she was hungry and I couldn't feed her. She was just crying, and until I handed her back to one of her parents, she wouldn't calm down. It was like they are the ones, and that's it.
Well, and babies need that. We need to just accept the fact that once they bonded to somebody, they don't really feel safe unless they're with that person, unless they've had some practice at it, several days in a row of being handed over to someone else with whom they can imprint or bond. So that's their survival. That's how they're built, and that's absolutely normal. Separation anxiety comes oftentimes when, I mean, this gets into some attachment theory, but if it's not a secure attachment with the parent, many children have extreme anxiety being separated, despite the fact that there's an insecure attachment. So that's part of the course as well. We talk about, how to coach around each of those things too. And I think that what you mentioned is self-efficacy can only really be achieved once the young person has felt anchored somewhere in the world. Then they're freed up. They're not in fight or flight mode anymore. They're actually freed up to be creative and build their own sense of self in the world. But the fundamental thing that has to happen is their connection with someone that really values and sees and hears them. And that's what many kids in gangs are missing, is that there just isn't somebody in their world that they can trust, who trusts them even and helps them trust themselves. So that's why gangs are effective, because they try to do those things in a really negative way oftentimes, but it does work for them because these kids are so desperate.
Yeah, and you said several days in a row to imprint, and that seems like gangs get more time, just like schools get more time with our children than we do as parents. And it seems like they're really imprinted that way. So, okay, jumping ahead now past we've gone from babies to the young adults to the parents. What about parents and their separation anxiety when they go off to college, their children? Do you have parenting coaching skills for that too, to help the parents through that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Um, I've been through it 3 times myself. I come at my parent coaching as a parent and as a coach. And I've learned a lot from my own personal experience. And so I do share that with with many parents. They do have anxiety about releasing their kids into the world, especially the world right now, where we have a pandemic happening and a variant that's very, very contagious, and we're not sure what policies are going to be like wherever their children lands, or they are sure and they're not comfortable with it. I mean, there's just so much unknown, and they're trying to launch kids who are just getting their wings on becoming themselves in the world. So yes, we talk about all that kind of stuff that is really difficult for parents, but if they have had some years to build with them and connect with them, they are releasing kids into the world that are so much more equipped to handle the challenges than if they haven't had parent coaching and they floundered and they don't feel close to their children as they release them into college. So that's why I like to get them, a little bit earlier. But even if it's when they're 18, I still can coach them on helping to build a sense of trust in the child's self, instead of you need me for everything, to say I think you've got this, and even just saying those words can help the parent as well with their anxiety. But it's not about being their manager anymore. It's about being their mentor. So we talk about you go from being the manager to the mentor in life. And if you don't, if you hang on, if you think you have to do everything for your child, you're actually depriving the child of the thing that he or she needs.
So is there
Because
a part of now I'm jumping to dating because I notice when adults, mature adults date, they're caught up in their children. Like they'll tell me stories about how they Jones for their children, you know, because they've moved out, they're married, they have kids, they don't call them ever. So there's still, it's not separation anxiety. Then it becomes this kind of um, loneliness that kicks in and fear, like they will never call me. And you know me working with estrangement, I've had to do so much work on that. So how do you help parents with, it's not estrangement, but I think it feels like that to them, or because they're just being ignored by these children that they spend every day with.
yeah, and that would be like a subspecialty, I think, that we could talk more in depth about. But there are ways to just do minimally invasive, to use a medical term, minimally invasive communications that are powerful and positive. We have an ICU letter in present moment parenting, where it's not words and it's not a phone call. It's not spoken, but it's an ICU letter that has several different uh, steps to it. The first one is, when I look at you, I see a kid who, and then all the good stuff, all the good things that the parent can think of to say about the child. And I also see a kid who, with whom I made some mistakes, and I wish I would have known XYZ back then. And I'm working on making it better. And I love you. And it's so interesting how that just, I mean, sometimes they don't ever acknowledge, most of the time they don't acknowledge the ICU letter, but we see some softening occurring. So I could very well see parents of young adults or older adults even sending an ICU letter and just experiencing some softening, because there's been pain there if they're not connecting with their parents, or they're just super busy and they don't regard their parents as a priority. Um, but whatever the reason, it can be healed regardless of the age of the child.
So does this work for grandparents then too? Like what you're teaching, where a parenting coach could help a grandparent?
Oh yeah, I've coached a lot of grandparents. Absolutely, yeah.
Nice. So I love it because I said, well, I don't really, my questions aren't about kind of how, what you use and the tools and how you do it, but you've been saying those, and that those are good answers. That it's really good to know that you have these ways to hold out things and just have this divine flow to it, where, oh, well, this is in my tool belt, because they say if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and then you.
That's right. That's right. And it just seems as if all the old authoritarian ways that most parents these days were raised with, simply as you have alluded to earlier, do not work with kids these days. And I think a lot of things contribute to that. I think we have maybe some more awareness in our children than we realize. They're not just like little rule followers. And if we set the rules, they're supposed to follow them. We punish them if they don't do it and then expect better results. It's just not working. It's just not working for these kids. I think they're more evolved. I think they see beyond some of this stuff. And so what we have to do is answer that. We have to go with where they are. And that's the only way to get better behavior and a closer relationship. Really, the closer relationship brings the better behavior as a side effect, which is so wonderful.
So with these, you have principles, which is nice because sometimes as a parent we don't feel principled. So how about principals remind me of school, and teachers? With teachers and parenting coaching, does that work? I mean, they have a larger group, and just think of parents with large families and you have more than one child or more than two. I say anytime you don't have two hands to hold them anymore, that number is too big. So how does it work with larger groups of children and parenting coaching?
The principles stay the same, and I've done a lot of training of teachers. You know, I do trainings for all kinds of different groups of people, and um, yeah, the principles are the same. It's connect before you expect. You know, basically connect, reflect the feeling the child is having, and then you can expect something. But without a relationship, I just saw this posted on LinkedIn today, without a relationship, no learning is going to be taking place without a solid, positive relationship with that child. So what we're
So
doing
it's
again is freeing them to think. You know?
yeah, and it's back to that what you said about imprinting and the days in a row. Like this isn't going to happen overnight, but I'm guessing some softening happens right away, so people get to see results, or at least they feel more relaxed, so then they see results because the children aren't amped up because they're amped up, or how's that?
Right. And yeah, and if teachers are feeling anxious or parents are feeling anxious, it does relieve their anxiety just to have some tools that they know will work. It's phenomenal. So the mental health of the parents is actually really affected by parent coaching. Sometimes I even see relationships that looked like they were falling apart kind of come back together because they have a way to interact with the kids that works that they can both agree on. So when people are on different pages, I say I'm not going to side with you and I'm not going to side with you, but I'm going to give you a third thing where you can both meet, and that's present moment parenting. And it has a lot to do with the physiology of how communication affects the body of the child. So yeah, it's very effective because the physiology almost cannot argue with the fact that every child has a brain that is looking for a threat. And if the threat alarm is on all the time, you're going to see a lot of negative behavior because the child doesn't feel seen by the parents upon whom they're dependent for their survival. And if the threat alarm is calm, then the rational thinking part of the brain can come online. So when I say we're freeing kids, we're taking them out of threat mode and we're helping them relax so that they can think in rational mode. And it's kind of the key. And it helps parents come together because it's physiological. It's not moral or philosophical. It's just like, here's how your child's body's reacting, and here's how you can make it better.
And you talked about size, not taking sides and stuff, and I think that's so important for the trust. What though about parents when you're coaching them? What principles and tools do you give people where people get in their own way, where they interfere with their own parenting? You're giving them stuff, but you notice this interference. You know how we self-sabotage? Do you have tools and a principle around that?
Well, it's the reason I stay with people for 4 sessions to begin with, to really help them see. Maybe they're watching the other parent get better results than they're getting, and then it might give them the idea that, okay, maybe I'm going to do it the way they're doing it because it seems to be working for them and not for me, kind of thing. Um, and if, let's just say, the parent has suffered some trauma that keeps him or her from being able to connect with the child in an effective way, I always recommend therapy. I'm not a therapist. I'm happy to not be a therapist. I don't have to diagnose people with something wrong. I can just help them learn a new technique. And so it's like a whistle around the neck coach, just like run to first base, run to second base, run to third base. Well, this is like apply this technique, apply that technique, apply that technique, and you're going to get the results you're looking for. So if a parent isn't able to do that because of some psychological issue that's standing in their way, I always recommend therapy. Sometimes they'll go to therapy and then come back to parent coaching. Sometimes they'll do it simultaneously, whatever works for them.
Wow, this is all really well said. I think I have a lot of information. Anything that you can say about so you do, give me again more of the parameters. It's the four, and then you said it's 125 an hour. What's that part where you do it hourly?
That's the coaching. That's the sessions that I spend the time sharing the results. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm talking about the training. So then you go into the coaching, you're saying, or how
Yeah,
do you
we
start and
do.
how do you end?
Okay, for the training is a 10-month process, 1 day a month, 9 o'clock Central to 3 o'clock Central, online with your class and me, 1 day a month. And then we have an intensive that's several half days, like 4 half days, and then 3 months of you doing your own coaching and my mentoring you on the coaching. And then you're certified as a parent coach.
And so that price you have covers all those things you just mentioned. The final price the total price that you.
On my website, the price of parenting coach certification is there. It's $34.99 for the 10 months. And that's the early bird. And if you miss the early bird, then it's $38.99. The early bird deadline is 2 weeks before class starts. So in this situation, it's September 15th, and we start on September 30th. And you can do monthly payments.
And so then after that, you get through the 10 months, then you go to the 4.5 days and then the 3 months.
That's your
That's not
coaching sessions
right.
where you coach parents.
Oh, so you're interning.
No, you're working. You have your own coaching.
Okay. I guess I'm not understanding that. The 4.5 days is you give them someone to coach, or how's that set up? The 4.5 days that you talked about.
No, the 4 half days
Oh, half
are
days. Okay.
an intensive where we do some other things, like I coach live in front of the group so that they get to witness me coaching. Then the group also practice coaches with each other. That's during the intensive. We also have a very distinct trauma presentation from one of my coworkers at a new family services. So that's part of the 10 months of the training.
Oh, that is part of it. Okay, that's what I didn't understand. And then you mentioned 3 months. Is that part of the 10 months kind of too?
Yes, yes,
Oh, so all that is in one cost is what I'm trying to say.
yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. That's a lot. All right. Well, all my questions are answered that I have for now. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for being here, Josine. Thank you for being willing to let me record too. Appreciate it very much.
Oh, yeah, and next time I'll have more succinct questions. But
Oh, you did
your
great. You did
brilliance,
great.
your brilliance always astounds me because it's your heart, your heart and your soul, and then that great mind, which
Thank you.
goes with a
Thank you.
smile. I love it all. Thank you,
Thank you.
Tina.
You take care.
Yeah, and I will talk to you later.
Okie dokie. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.